Lawyers of Reddit, at what point when working for a defendant, did you realize, my client is a monster? We had a client try and enforce a post-employment restraint against a 19-year-old receptionist after she quit and started working for a competitor. The reason? He wanted to make her life hell because she wouldn't sleep with him, a creepy 57-year-old man. Him trying to sleep with her was the reason she quit. Unsurprisingly, he didn't take our advice to discontinue his claim, and so we ended up sending him elsewhere. See, this right here shows the one thing many different type of assholes share. They don't know when to fudging stop. He could have been done for sexual harassment and he got away with it. But he had to keep going. Not once thinking he'd done something wrong. I'll go ahead and say it. When I practiced family law and criminal defense, I trusted and believed my criminal defense clients 100x more than my divorce/custody clients. The worst monsters are the people who manipulate minor children for custody reasons. Fuck them. Luckily I'm out of that area of law, hopefully for good. As a manipulated, my younger brother much worse, youth in a custody battle by a pharmaceutically dependent parent. I wish this comment would move up in the ranks. I upvoted it to bump it because my father is an opioid addict and the amount of manipulation my family went through at the hands of his addictions caused some major rifts in all of our lives, including suicide attempts, self-negligence, ruined self-esteem and depression for all of us. My general psychology professor worked for the state of Arkansas assessing criminals to see if they would qualify as criminally insane. He told us a story one time about a guy who would get glass shards and hide them underneath his skin, presumably to use at a more opportune time. He said his interview with the guy made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. I'm on the other side, but I've got a defendant who went to prison for starving 3 adopted children to the point that they needed weeks of hospitalization, then got out of prison and married a guy with children so that she could start starving them, too. Listening to her interview where she attempts to justify what she did to both sets of kids disturbed me more than any of the murder cases I've worked on. What was her justification? I listened to a 911 call where the victim's throat was slit while on the call by our client. I will never forget her gurgling and sounding like she was dying. Somehow she ultimately lived through this, saying, "He killed me, he killed me." That is not something I ever wish to hear. I feel bad even after reading it. She tried to sell her baby. I found out during a hearing, in front of the judge. The people who try to sell babies surprise me. The people who try to buy babies confound me. They do, until you read the rest of the replies in here and notice that all that CP must come from somewhere. Then, I notice that the people who try to buy babies horrify me to hell. My mom is a lawyer. This is the story about how she quit being a public defender. When you are a public defender, you don't get to choose your cases. She got assigned a young man who, with the help of his gay friend, had gotten a kitten from a free to a good home ad in the paper. They then brought it home and gave it to their dog as a chew toy. I think they also filmed it. So yeah. She said she needed a shower after every meeting with him. Cancelled her PD contract after the case concluded. I worked for an animal rescue charity, and those free to a good home situations end badly more often than you like to think. Have heard lots of horror stories, especially with dogs who are given away. Not the client but my managing partner. The client was a senile 90-year-old man. He wanted to sell land worth a little less than $1 billion to some businessman. Suffice to say, there were many who wanted to take advantage of the situation. One such person, to my dismay, was our managing partner. The partner wanted to insert a provision that would have effectively funneled about 60% of the proceeds solely to him. You could see how his eyes gleamed at the mere mention of money. The provision got lost in the revisions. I was doing the revisions. I'm no longer part of that scummy firm. The first and last family law case was assigned to me as a first-year associate. My client broke his wife's jaw, and said if they were home in Russia he would have killed her because he could pay his way out of prison there. When I had to go to the U.S. Attorney's office to view the evidence in his case, there they were, the hundreds of images of child porn he had traded, the close-up images of his baby's genitals that he had taken and sent around the internet, the pictures of his neighbor's daughters playing in their kiddie pool. Realized he just could not help himself. But he also never once claimed responsibility or showed remorse, so I don't feel too badly for him. When this person, an executive, said she was firing any employee who had a serious illness or injury, while promoting fundraisers at a local church for cancer sufferers, no less, in part because employees, thinking she'd be sympathetic, would reveal their confidential health info to her. Isn't that super illegal to do? Well, she wasn't firing them because of their medical issues. The employees with medical issues just always seem to be poor performers at their jobs. Lifelong criminal defense lawyer here. To be completely honest, it's not about the offense but about the person. I've had people accused of murder that I really kind of liked and thought well of. I've had people accused of shoplifting who have given me the heebie-jeebies and seemed like psychopaths. Speaking from purely a criminal standpoint, having a client who is a monster doesn't matter in terms of your duty to them. But it does make the job less pleasant. My worst clients have been people who are comfortable scamming others of their money. Had a client charged with bestiality with his pet goat. Pictures of his undies full of goat hair and his bed littered with goat poo was something the like I have never seen in my career. When after the charges were dismissed, he asked me for help getting the goat back. SMH. Found Aberforth Dumbledore's lawyer. Defended my client in a lawsuit who defrauded his business partners. Evidence was already overwhelming that my client was liable. Client made matters worse by fabricating evidence and presenting it in court. He got called out on it by his dad's attorney who had the same evidence. It tanked my client's case. My client continued lying to me despite the overwhelming evidence showing he fabricated evidence. He lost, big. In addition to a large judgment, he got hit with several felonies for fabricating evidence. Also, the business partners my client screwed over were his dad and brother. I'm a civil litigator. I've never thought my client is a monster, but there are a few I've thought were idiots or liars or both. Two of my favorites are a client who instructed me, against my advice, to object to the temporary judge even though we had just discussed it and I had just told the fudging judge we were okay with him. And a client who testified pretty much the exact opposite of what she had told me in our initial meetings and what we had repeatedly discussed. You can't send me to the principal's office. You're a substitute teacher. When I saw the state's discovery file the video of the SWAT teams entering the residence, blood on the wall, wife's arm cut so deeply you could see all the insides. Photos of the bloody blade in the street. Then reading their infant had been in her arms when it happened. Yikes. So the killer killed the mother with the baby being in the hands of the mother? Prosecutor here. Most of us in this profession have the utmost respect for those on the other side of the aisle. Most people really don't know or understand the really fudged up shiz that we have to witness and deal with on a daily basis. There's a reason attorneys have the highest percentage of alcoholics by profession. When he told me that both of his biological teenage daughters were lying about him raping them because he refused to let them go to prom so they were mad at him. Law Order SVU writers are salivating. Just got enough content for an additional 30 seasons.